Welcome one and all to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 220. I'm the Indigenous Owl.
I'm the Angry Raccoon.
Bringing you the last podcast of June 2023.
And first thing I need to say is hope you guys have enjoyed Pride Month so far, as June does come to an end. It's been a fun month in terms of celebrations and other things that people have referenced in terms of this month. Obviously, people should be respecting those who are in the LGBTQ+, despite the fact that June is ending. But we have a very, very big podcast and a very interesting one coming up. We're blending certain genres and certain things, and we're kind of doing some celebration to some extent on this episode. Yeah. Obviously, I'm joined by Al on this episode because I really needed some help for this one. But what have you been up to since the last podcast, which I think was 218?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so in terms of gaming, so I managed to finish the Spyro trilogy on the PS4, which I'm really happy about because I kept starting and stopping. So I thought, no, today I'm going to finish this. So I managed to 120% it first playthrough. So I'm pretty happy with that. In terms of films, I watched Suzume, which is Makoto Shinkai's better films. I definitely preferred it over Your Name, but I'll go into a bit more depth later on. And the other film I watched is Spider-Man Across the Universe. And again, I'll get into that a little bit later on. But I did enjoy the film. Both films that I watched.
So very eventful. So kind of the complete opposite from me, because I didn't actually really manage to do much apart from one thing, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
I've mainly just been focusing on myself. Projects, I've been trying to work on my fitness, and of course, putting together this podcast. Because as I said at the end of the last one, I wasn't going to talk about any of the new game trailers from Summer of Gaming, Summer Game Fest, because stuff was still coming out at the time of writing and recording it, so I said I would save it, which kind of was a smart and dumb thing at the same time, because it went on for a week. And it technically is kind of still going on, because right after everyone did their not really convention, but their conference, Nintendo did a Nintendo Direct. Then Sega did a sort of Sega conference, which has just happened. I'm sick of looking at game trailers because I watched everything.
Oh my god.
I watched everything, and we've nailed it down to roughly about 7. There will be no gameplay trailers next podcast, possibly for a while. I'm done. I've seen all the editing techniques. I've seen all the stock music. I've heard all the rap songs. I'm done.
Yeah, stop now.
I'm done, okay? This is going to be the end of gameplay in games for a while now. And Al, I believe you have the first trailer we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so the first one we're going to kick it off with is Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. So, from watching the trailer, I was actually surprised that Ubisoft was actually making another Prince of Persia game. I was really shocked. It's because the last game that was released was in 2010, which was Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands, which was on the PS3 and Xbox, so really time has flown by since that. But first and foremost, I wanted to say that the gameplay has gone back to its roots of being 2D, which has this like the combat of like what was going on in the 3D era. It's crazy to think even like the first installment that came out in 1989 and this game just randomly just popped out of nowhere, because I literally remember the hype around being around the PS2 game, which came out in 2025, oh my god, going to the future here. 2005.
That'll be the next game, because it's Ubisoft, annual game every year.
2005, which was Prince of Persia, the Two Thrones, which I see the posters for it everywhere, and everyone was just like, that was pretty much everything that was advertised at the time. But, going back onto the trailer a bit more, like, the graphics kind of reminded me of the new Zelda games, which is really weird. I don't know why. Like, how, like, a Nintendo game, like, it just reminded me of, like, the graphics from a Nintendo game.
It's interesting you say that, because I was more reminded of that other game they did, where it was, like, the Olympus thing. I forget what it's called.
Oh, I don't remember.
They had another game, it was like a new IP, and you were kind of like, it was a little bit like Kid Icarus, the character looked like.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of like an open world thing, which I would say that was more in reference or maybe ripping off the Breath of the Wild series. But that makes sense. I would say this game is a little bit more in line with, let's say, indie games to some extent, or the indie look, but go on, because I know you have a lot more to say.
And a lot of the elements of gameplay are still kind of traditional to previous games, which is like the wall jumping and the combo juggling. So I'm very happy for the fans and stuff for this game, especially. So yeah,
because they've wanted it for a while.
Yeah, 100%.
and I'm happy that they're getting that, because I mean, in recent years, a lot of characters are coming back, which is nice, and they're coming back with good sequels for the most part, which is great. Obviously, the best example being like Crash, Spyro, and there's a couple others. I mean, you can even technically say to some extent Dead Space, because, you know, Isaac Clarke is quite a big name now. I mean, when I saw this trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, like Ubisoft made a game that actually looks like fun to play.
Yeah, it does look fun.
It's been a while, and this trailer moves at such a blinding speed. Like, it's almost too fast to the point where it's hard to tell what's even going on. Like, the frantic way in which this trailer is just cutting and going between things is quite what's the word, exciting to some extent, and hopefully this reflects in like fast action like gameplay for the most part. And it's like very flashy looking. Like, there's a real flow and elegance to the way he does his moves and how they start end the animations, and that, like, it's almost to the point where he's not really fighting, it's more like he's styling and performing in some sense. There's like this flair to the way he moves, at least that's the way I kind of saw it. And there's like a nice sense of weight to it, like when he's like slamming people. Like, there's it's hard to explain, and I don't know if there is a technical name, but like when let's say the blade connects, there's like a moment where it stops and you kind of get that douche that hits. Which I kind of like. I think that gives great emphasis to it. And like, I think what's interesting as well with this game is like they've clearly taken inspiration from the indie scene, like I said before. I can see elements of like Celeste in there. The Strider game from 2014 which was very fast-paced, Metroid style in that sense. Dead Cells as well. It has a classic feeling, obviously, because it looks exactly like the classic game, but it feels new at the same time. My only downsides right now, and that could just be because of the trailer, is the way the characters react is a little bit melodramatic. Like, they're all screaming and shouting like, "What's going on? He's done." Yeah. I was like, maybe let's tone that down a bit, but whatever. Next trailer, we have another character returning. Yeah,
so the next trailer is Sonic Superstars. So again, yeah, when I first watched this trailer as well, like the first 5 seconds of it, I was like, okay, I'm seeing like, I've kind of got like Sonic Generation vibes. And I was just like, okay, so it's like a transition of like Sonic going from like 16-bit to like 2.5D basically. And like, which was nice, but I was like, okay, do we need another like HD version of like classic Sonic? I'm like, Generations did it perfectly fine. I liked the way Generations did it. But when I kept watching, I could see like it's gonna be like a nice multiplayer game. You can play as like Tails, Knuckles, Amy. So it's quite nice, and I like the fact that like when they're even in like the water, they turn into like jellyfish, which I kind of like the little. I don't know, I like that little new elements that they've thrown into this game. I think it'll be really good fun.
Yeah, I think it's literally called Elements or something like sort of power-ups. Because I think in the trailer you see they're about to fight a boss and just Sonic sends like a barrage of Sonics. Yeah,
so it's pretty cool.
I think that's a really interesting way to shake things up. Like, I honestly thought they would have done this a long time ago. Like, in terms of a 4-player classic playing Sonic game. Like, I'm not sure if anyone was actually asking for this, but I'm kind of glad they've done it because it does look really cool for the most part. Like, the game looks really fun. It's like, yeah, it is another love letter to like Sonic's legacy, much like Generations, much like Mania, much like Sonic Forces. I mean, I think at this point Sega is just always going to go back to classic when they want to celebrate Sonic, which, you know, if the games are good, that's fine. But I mean, the game looks beautiful in my opinion. Like, I think it's possibly the brightest and most vibrant Sonic game, maybe next to Mania, and that says a lot when you compare a lot like colors and other games. And I mean, despite being like a throwback to the first game, like it's nice to see like a once again another pseudo remake of Green Hill Zone, and this game kind of has a lot of different kind of aspects. Like, to me, this game plays more like Sonic Rush, which was on the DS. It's got a little bit of Generations. It's taken from games like the On the Rails. I think that was first in Sonic Advance, which was on the GBA. Amy's design is straight out of Sonic CD, which is personally my favorite Sonic game. And the powers or elements or whatever they're calling it is very Sonic colors, because even when they turned into fish or jellyfish, like you said, it weirdly reminded me of Pac-Man. Because they kind of go to that base color.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
like the ghosts and that, like Pinky and that. It's interesting. I do really like that, and I love the visual shift from like the 16-bit to 3D in the trailer. I thought that was really nice, just a very smooth like back and forth with Sonic going through there, and they had that nice little tease of like Fang the Sniper, who apparently he's going to be an antagonist in this game, which is kind of cool because he's from Sonic the Fighters.
Oh right, okay.
And I did watch, like I said, I did watch that Sega conference, and the two creators did say that he is going to kind of be working for Eggman, and his design in 3D actually looks really nice.
Nice.
And he's a character that he was in Mania, but he was kind of just there. And I guess Sega just really likes him, or the fans just really like him, so I'm glad that they're going to bolster the roster with someone who is a nice character and doesn't really talk and chat rubbish all the time. Next trailer we have was a big surprise, because I'm not a fan of this series at all, but the trailer had me quite surprised, and that is going to be the second teaser trailer for the Fable remake. It's a rather unorthodox trailer for the most part, and having Richard Ayoade who is one of my favorite creatives alive today as a giant boss battle is a fantastic concept. Like, this is perfect casting right here, in my opinion. And like, I'm really glad they've kept that dry British humor, especially with him, because he can really bring it, because obviously we had people like John Cleese and Stephen Fry in previous games. This has always like helped the series stand out, and Richard Ayoade is like another highlight in this game, I think. And it's interesting, like, besides Richard's commentary, the comedy in this game I think is a bit dry. It's very like referential and referencey, like, you know, you see like the person who's chatting something and he gets taken off by a dragon or whatever, you know, even when like the character gets caught, she's like, oh shit, you know, it's like, it's not that interesting for the most part. But I mean this is where it kind of gets tricky, where I'm probably going to lose some fans, and that is, this game is not going to live up to Peter Molyneux's kind of aim for this series, where he wanted it to be like the greatest RPG ever made. It's not going to happen, I'm afraid. Not with this game, and I don't think any of the previous games are going to do that, because I think simply the industry, especially in its current state right now, doesn't know what a true RPG is. If you look at the Assassin's Creed series and some of these other series, they act like an RPG, but I'll give you some advice. Locking off content until you make it to another level is not an RPG. Literally stopping the player from progressing the story just so they can grind, that's not how you do RPGs, I'm afraid. You need to give people options. The only other issue, which I know a lot of people had issues with this trailer, is the main character. They generically and graphically look really ugly, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions. And my only guess is that this character is like the amalgamation of the customization, and they've kind of just picked a default face, or they haven't finished the customization thing in the game, which I think you've kind of always-ish been able to do that to some extent.
Yeah.
So, and also when you look at that, it's because I think it's not a primary focus compared to like highly detailed Richard Ayoade. Of course, he's obviously going to look good compared to your goofy ass character for the most part, but everything should be consistent. And when you see the character next to him, there's a big difference. You kind of go from PS5 to PS3 to some extent, in my opinion. But because I was getting Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda flashbacks. If you ever seen the base character in that, they look terrible. And I hope that this game doesn't go down that route for the most part. But, Al?
Pretty much to echo what you were saying, I was like, oh, Fable. Oh, God, okay.
But then you was like...
and then I was like, hold on a minute, that's Richard Ayoade. I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, so he was like narrating the scene and everything. I like how they did that with him, like, kind of, it looked like he was actually kind of doing like a review of the whole thing, really. Yes. The way he was sitting down,
and like a critique of the fantasy genre to some extent, which is clever.
But it was kind of funny because it kind of reminded me of the IT Crowd episode where they were playing Dungeons and Dragons and he was narrating the game. So I just thought,
they probably watched that episode and then got him for that.
Yeah, so I felt like, but overall the game, I don't really care. It's just more about Richard Ayoade.
Yeah,
just commentating over it.
I mean. They may have shot themselves in the foot, because this might be the best part of the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
People will just turn off once they kill or beat Richard Ayoade Giant. But,
pretty much.
Next trailer we have, I believe I'm going to take this one, which is an interesting one, and it's going to be Sandland, which it's so nice to see Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z, actually doing something else. I know he did this like way back in the early 2000s, but it's actually nice to see something besides Dragon Ball come out of this man, because he's such a creative and visually distinct creator when it comes to manga.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we've all seen his art in Dragon Ball, we've all seen his art in Dragon Quest, we've seen it occasionally in other games, but it's nice to see something brand new-ish kind of get its own game, especially after the fact that this was a real surprise to me that the trailer for the film, the animated film, only came out like 2 months ago. So it's kind of cool to see this kind of get like a weird tie-in game.
Yeah.
But it does beg the question, like, is the game just going to be the events of the film, or will it be much more kind of in reference to the manga? Because this is like an open world game. And I don't know. It's nice to see his iconic style like really represented here in a new next gen game for the most part. Like the backgrounds look fine, but like the weird line detailing he does on characters kind of really give them that nice definition, those striking faces. It's all present here. Obviously the character Beelzebub is going to be very interesting to play because it's basically an open world sandbox game where you play as a tiny little Super Saiyan. And that is awesome, in my opinion. Just that idea alone. Because just running around or seeing the character running around, it reminds me a lot of Blue Dragon, which was a very fun game.
I forgot about that game.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Microsoft, you need to stop fucking up Where's Blue Dragon 2? Because we ain't asking for Fable or any of this other rubbish. Everyone's asking for Blue Dragon 2. It's been, 20 years? No, it's not been that long. Honestly, this looks like a lot of fun. It looks like the kind of game you're just going to really have a lot of fun with, in my opinion. Al, I know you're more a fan of Dragon Ball. Did this gauge you in any kind of way?
Not really, no. It's actually, I saw like a little bit of it, but I was like, nah, I didn't really. Like, I don't really have much care. I don't really care for Dragon Quest either, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so it's not.
That's understandable. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see this game do well because if this game does well, we can finally get the Dr. Slurp film I've been waiting for.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about it, yeah.
Where is my Dr. Slurp film? Where's my Dr. Slurp in Spider-Verse style? Could you imagine how sick that would be? Slump?
I'm sure it's Dr. Slump.
Slump or Slurp? It's probably Slump.
I think it might be. Oh, well.
the series he did before Dragon Ball Z. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know.
With
yeah.
Ariel?
Yeah, Ariel, yeah.
Ariel, who's stronger than Goku. Deal with it. Next trailer we have, probably the best trailer we are going to talk about, and that is, of course, going to be Squirrel with a gun. This game goes in hard. Like, this is Game of the Year right here, simply put. And... This song has the best James Bond theme since Skyfall, and the creators know that there is just something inherently funny about a squirrel holding a gun bigger than its body. That is just comedy gold, because of all the animals on this planet, if a squirrel could, it would use a gun. That's a fact. It would hold you up and take your food.
Yeah.
Apparently this squirrel is also a massive fan of the Devil May Cry series, because he'd be doing fucking air juggling, like spin moves and all that kind of shit. There's like takedowns in this with the guns. There's a melee combat. There's counters. This game is deep. This game is deep for a collectathon. And I mean, the way the squirrel runs, he kind of runs with his arms in the air holding something and it's bouncing on top of him. It's so funny and really cute to see this little thing holding a mine as it runs out. It's very cartoony, and they've clearly taken some inspiration from something. In all seriousness, I do think this game looks like a lot of fun. I mean, they're not taking themselves seriously. They know it's dumb. They know it's not the most graphically impressive game. It's just someone having a lot of fun with it. And it's very much in the same spirit of Goat Simulator, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more than that. But I just wanted to mention it because I feel like it's going to be one of those games that someone or a lot of people are really going to have a good time or a good afternoon with. Yeah. And that's what you need sometimes. Not every single game needs to be 60 hours or needs to be a cinematic cutscene extravaganza. Some people just want to do dumb things in a game. And this is going to be one of those games, hopefully. Al, anything to say about Squirrel with a Gun?
Just to echo on your Devil May Cry comment, is just, I bet he probably preferred like Virgil over Dante.
Well, the moves he does seem to be in more reference to Dante, but who knows? He
secretly likes Virgil.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Next trailer, I believe you have this one for us, Al.
Oh, yeah. So the next trailer will be Pragmata. Mm-hmm. I do remember us talking about this trailer on like I can't remember which podcast it was, like time ago. But I remember we were discussing about it, and there's not really been much said about the plot.
There's a reason.
Okay, but yeah, it really, I feel like this is a game that's going to be really memorable in years to come. I feel like a lot of people are going to like this game. From the trailer itself, So it just starts off with like the little girl, like Diana, her name is.
Yes.
So she's humming like a kind of like a melancholy song, and then the soldier, I don't even know what his name is.
He's not named as of yet.
Yeah, the protagonist, we'll say, is calling her for assistance, and like whilst he's killing the enemies. The gameplay is like a third person adventure. It's set in like the dystopian space. But I can appreciate like the message at the end where it's like, oh yeah, like the developers are gonna still take time working on this game because they want this game to be the best quality that it can be. They don't want a game to be rushed. And I can appreciate they taking the time to do this. So
Yeah, everything about this game is so mysterious and interesting.
Yeah.
As it's the only game I can think of where we know next to nothing about it, yet the team making this game have humbly apologized for its delay, and they kind of seem to think that they've let people down, which they haven't because we don't really have any real expectation of this game right now. And they've thanked the fans, like you said, with the message at the end. Thanks them for being patient. And look in the comments, people are showing them a lot of support, saying take as long as you need.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see this game that doesn't even really technically exist right now have a lot of support right now. What's interesting again about this trailer is that this trailer is in reference to a previous trailer from last year, which I'm going to link in the description, a download link, where it was back in 2022, where it showed Diana. It was just like her just standing there. She had a card, and she was holding it, and it said 2022 crossed out, and it said 2023, and it said like sorry. And now this trailer obviously references that, where it says 2023 crossed out, and it just says question mark. Which, doing a little bit more research, the game has unfortunately been delayed indefinitely. Now, it doesn't mean it's cancelled, it just means that they have no idea when it's coming out, which is a shame because I think both of us are actually kind of really interested in this game, and I really do hope it does see the light of day. And I mean, yeah, this is a really interesting one because there's like so much potential with this game in terms of some of the visual stuff, and they clearly know what they're doing. Like, I do like how in the trailer you do see, Diana does ask, are we there yet? And the soldier or the character does say, we got a long way to go. It's like a nice double meaning in terms of the story and the game's development as well. It reminds me a lot of Vanquish meets Binary Domain, which are two fantastic games. Go play them if you've never played them. But because his suit is incredibly detailed, much like the suit in Vanquish. And I'm guessing he handles the combat or the guns while Diana cast long-range spells or AoE.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, yeah.
I don't think Diane is a real human.
No,
she doesn't look like it. She must be artificial or digital. The other thing I wanted to ask you as well, the way he runs is very Monster Hunter-like, is it not?
You know what? Well, it's a Capcom game, so yeah, I guess so.
I know they made it, but I wanted to ask you particularly, the way he runs, that's Monster Hunter, is it not?
Yeah, I guess so.
It looked like it to me. Like, there's so much I could do with this game, because I was just thinking, and I was like, you could have so many moments and interactions as like Diana is like standing or riding on the main character's back, and you see like her different animations, or both of these two characters animating or doing things or moving at the same time. Diana could be doing something like cute or weird while you're just exploring the world, she yawns or whatever. The other thing as well that reminded me of, this is basically a PS5 or modern day equivalent of Banjo-Kazooie.
Okay.
It's very much like Banjo-Kazooie because, you're walking around with the bear and you've got the bird on your back. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it for games. We've got one more thing to talk about with games, and that's going to be Dead Cells, which is going to get an animated series. This is the most teaser to ever tease. It's basically a mention. You don't see anything. It just basically says, Dead Cells cartoon, get ready. I'm so pleased to see another animated adaptation of a video game get some form of adaptation, because if the Super Mario Brothers film has taught us anything, it's that animation is the way to go. Look how much money that film made, and it wasn't live action. Plus, Bobby Pills, who did the Super Fuck Friends and all those other kinds of animations, they did the Invincible season 2 teaser trailer. They're going to be doing it, so good to see them actually doing a full mainstream TV series. Next trailer we've got two more, because we've got to talk about films. You just got to. And I got to be angry about animation. But you've got the next trailer.
Yep, so the next trailer is Elo, or Ilo, whatever you want to call it. So this is Disney Pixar's, I think it's 28th featured film now. I think it's their 28th film anyway. But pretty much based around this character called Elio, and basically he's walked to another galaxy, and he is mistakenly labeled as the ambassador of the Earth by the alien life forms in space, and he has to try and I guess he has to try and go through these quests to kind of prove his worth or some sort of thing. But yeah.
I think that was basically everyone's sentiment. I think, being brutally honest, I don't think anyone gives a shit about this film. You clearly don't. I don't. I've got barely anything to say about it, and it's just picking the trailer apart. I bet when the director of this film saw Nope, they were like, damn, aliens was gonna be my thing. But, the last two sci-fi films Pixar has done have flopped. Why are you pushing sci-fi as a genre? You can't do it. Give it up. You clearly don't understand it in any sense. Disney doesn't understand sci-fi in general. Just look at Star Wars. It's a fucking mess. But I will give the film this and this only. It is a cute premise, but this is not a feature-length premise. This is the plot of a 22-minute episode of a long-running cartoon. Because this has been done before.
I agree, actually.
I want people to actually find me cartoons whenever, wherever, that have this exact plot or something similar to this. This is nothing special. This is nothing new. This is nothing groundbreaking. This has been done already. And so far, yes, it's a tease, you have not shown us anything interesting or different other than some okay alien designs. That's about it. And once again, this film has the Cowl Arts art style, which I don't hate the whole bean mouth style, as they also call it, but I'm starting to get really sick of it, especially in Disney and Pixar films, because they keep using it. It's very generic looking at this point, and by proxy, Disney looks generic because you look like everyone else now. Compare this to the style, compare this to DreamWorks' last two films and next two films. Their next two films being Ruby Gillman and Trolls 3. Those films look visually fantastic. They could be complete garbage. They're still going to look really good at the end of the day. The difference is massive when you think about it, because DreamWorks in recent years have personality to their style. This looks like a rip-off of Disney or someone trying to do what they think is popular. I don't understand why the film is so dark. Yes, it's space, but there needs to be more visual flair. And also, I know the child's wearing an eye cap, but is this going to be them trying to force more inclusive messages into their film? This is the first Disney Pixar film to have a disabled character in it. Oh, because we've got to do that now. There's a reason why the Super Mario Bros. Film did really well, and it's because they don't shove messages in your face. At no point does Mario tell you to respect women.
No.
You know what I mean? Because everyone watching the films knows you respect women, and they're just enjoying the film. Last trailer we have, and that's going to be for Kraven the Hunter. This is going to be the Red Band trailer. I mean, I don't really need to say much else about this other than it's Kraving time. Because that's really what this film should be called. Who looked at this film and said, this looks good? Because I can tell you right now, it does not. This honestly feels like Morbius 2. Or that they are copying the Morbius blueprint and have changed literally nothing. This is John Wick if he was unlikable, a soulless person, a pretty boy with daddy issues. They're trying way too hard to make him sexy and a badass, and why the hell isn't Russell Crowe Kraven? He sounds like how Kraven should sound. Why is he not playing him? He's going to be CGA when he's running like a mad person in London. Just have Russell Crowe be Kraven.
Exactly.
And you're trying to tell me that the blood of a lion gave him superhuman powers. Why can't he just be a character who trained and applied himself to be one of the greatest people of all time? It worked for Batman. Why can't it work here? I don't care if this is how he actually gets his powers. It's dumb in this context, and it's dumb how you present it. And he's constantly making smart-ass comments. He's basically a TikTok wannabe rather than a calculated, foreboding hunter. And the CGI is laughably bad. That was supposed to be a lion that looked like a fucking cartoon. Jesus Christ, man. like, Sony, get your shit together. Like, because clearly Spider-Man is the only thing keeping your company alive. Like, oh my god, what a waste of time. Al, do you have anything to say about this trailer? Because I'm done with it.
Next.
All right, next. We got the discussion. And as I said in the previous podcast, it is the halfway point, technically, of the year. We've made it halfway through 2023, so that means we got to talk about the best and the worst of 2023 so far. And boy, it's been quite an interesting year when you consider the last 6 months. Al, you want to start us off with some things you want to talk about? Good, bad, whatever?
Yeah, so the main thing I'm going to talk about is movies, because it will be too long if I go for everything, so I'm just stuck with movies.
Sure thing.
So, for good, I've gone for Spider-Man Across the Universe. So, I'm just going to quickly just go over the plot. Spoiler free, of course. So, pretty much, it takes place 4 months after the first film, and it pretty much is kind of like with Miles Morales kind of dealing with like the common issues of teenage life, kind of dealing with his dual personality, well, not dual personality, sorry, but personas. So obviously he's missing class a lot because he has to deal with like being a superhero and stuff. And I feel like it's the same thing with also Gwen as well. She's kind of going through the same battle as well. And yeah, I would say like the film is pretty much, it's a fun film. I really enjoyed it. I'm not really a huge Marvel person myself, but overall it was great, but it's just the sequel baitness. Yeah. It's just, it was a bit predictable halfway through the film, unfortunately.
Unfortunate, but understandable when you don't finish your film. You have to make certain changes in order to get people to see the second one. My first pick is going to be for, of course, Resident Evil 4 Remake. This was a really good remake of what a lot of people regard as one of the greatest games of all time. It's not even the best Resident Evil game. But what they did with this remake was fantastic. I mean, everything is intact from the core. It's just everything has a massive overhaul, and they've made so many fantastic changes. I would say the only things that I didn't like about this game is the aiming and how certain enemies can just stun lock you. The guys who carry torches, that's the most lethal enemy in the whole game because they can just stun lock you. And I don't like that. But I think it's a fantastic game. I've beaten it about 9 times. I platinumed it. Cannot wait for that DLC, which is obviously going to be featuring Ada. And I want Mercenaries to have more content because right now it's really easy and it's only 3 maps, 4 characters. I know we already kind of know who the other characters are going to be revealed, but I'd highly recommend it if you want like a nice action-ish survival horror game for the most part. But yeah, Al, do you have another one for us?
So again, sticking with movies, Polite Society. I've already explained the plot on the previous podcast, so that's one of the better films, but I'll quickly just run through it. So it's pretty much about, it's set with an Asian family, the older sister's getting married, and the younger sister's trying to find a way from her to kind of stop from going through the traditional thing of getting married and settling down and having a family, and actually wanting her to actually follow her dreams and being an artist. There is a plot twist within it, but I'm not going to say what it is, but it was unexpected for sure. So yeah, back to you, Raccoon.
Okay, this hasn't finished yet, unfortunately. We've got 1 episode to go, and that is, of course, going to be for Unicorn Warriors Eternal, coming from legendary animator and director Genndy Tartakovsky. This is the series he's been trying to make for, I think, apparently since he was making Dexter's Lab all the way back in the 90s. So he's finally been able to make this passion project of his, and so far, 9 episodes in, it's really good. It kind of has caught me off guard in a lot of regards, and I'll go over the concept of it. It basically follows a unicorn, a group of heroes who essentially exist in order to fight the evil that constantly keeps coming back. It's an endless cycle and an endless loop where once the heroes of Unicorn defeat the evil, their souls kind of go away and only come back and kind of take over someone else's body when the evil returns. So it has a fantastic concept, and how this series starts is really interesting, where we kind of follow our main character Emma, and she's just about to get married when kind of one of the members of Unicorn, who's like this robot called Copernicus, he essentially decides, well, she's going to be one of them, just out of nowhere, literally on her wedding day, just before she's going to get married, and she becomes the dark sorceress Melinda. And that causes a lot of issues, especially when some of the other characters kind of become who they are. For example, a kid becomes Seng, who is like, he exists in the cosmic realm and he kind of sees the world in a different perspective. He's he's there as a kid, but he's also in the cosmic realm. He's in two places at once, which is a cool concept. You have Edred, who is like an elf from another kind of fantasy world, who was Melinda's partner, but Melinda and Emma are kind of still there in one being. So there's a nice contrast where both Emma's to-be husband kind of still wants Emma to still be there, while he's like, that's not Emma anymore. Well, Edred is like, that's not Emma anymore, that's Melinda. So there's a nice conflict between like who she is and who she's going to be with, and they really do develop that kind of relationship between these three. It's a nice triangle that actually makes sense and actually works, because typically when you hear love triangle, you kind of go, whatever. Yeah. But so far it's really good. The animation and art style is really cool because it kind of takes reference more from European illustration animation. So I'm talking like Tintin, Popeye, Asterix and Obelix, a little bit of Tetsuya, who did like Astro Boy, and that. It looks like a very old school show, which is really nice, and almost every single character kind of, you can point back to another character because they've got like Pac-Man eyes and that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, but it's really fun so far. The main villain as well, I love. It's, without spoiling too much, because they're just referred to, you see them in the first episode, they're just referred to as Mysterious Woman. And it's just a woman in a green Victorian dress holding an umbrella, and her face is completely covered in black, and she just has green glowing eyes, much like Dio. And what they do with that character is very interesting, because if you watch the first reveal in the first episode, look very carefully, I'm going to say, because you might notice some things that become very prevalent throughout the series. But fantastic series so far. I don't think they're going to fuck it up in the last episode, especially how episode 9 ended, because my jaw was agape when we got to the episode. I was like, really? You're going to end episode 9? We've got what better be 45 minutes. Don't be... Gendy, I don't want to see 20 minutes for the next episode. That needs to be 30 minimum, because you got a lot to deal with in that final episode. I've talked enough about that. Another one from you, Al.
So my next film is, I mentioned it earlier on, is Suzume. So I'll go into the plot now. So it's pretty much it. The film takes place with a 16-year-old girl called Suzume, who meets a gentleman called Sota, who is a university student who's searching for basically like an abandoned area with a door. It's really random, but I'll explain the context a bit later. But basically she goes to school as normal, and then she's like, just kind of out of curiosity, she probably has a little bit of a crush on him, but she's like, oh, I kind of want to know where this mysterious guy is going. So she basically goes to this abandoned area. She's asking her friends where is like where is that place that the abandoned door is. So they explain to her where it is, and then she goes to follow him, and basically it's just like the doors so it's just a mysterious like abandoned building, and there's just a door in the middle, and she walks there, she opens the door, and literally when she opens the door, it's like a starlit field, and then literally there's like a frozen, like it looks like a frozen statue, but then when I think she lifts it up, and then it basically breaks the seal, and a cat basically it manifests into a cat, and then the cat runs off. And then the story kind of just starts to kind of go a bit more wild for after that kind of thing. Because then after the guy comes, and then he's just like, what have you done, basically? So they kind of go, once that all happens, then it's pretty much them two kind of going on an adventure and kind of started to like figure out what the situation is. But yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail of what happens exactly.
Interesting. I like that concept.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty fun. Yeah,
it's a really fun film. It has a lot of emotional stuff in it, but better than Your Name for sure, 100%.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. I'm gonna have another film. Still one of my favorite films of this year. I don't think it's gonna get beat, personally, in my opinion. That is, of course, gonna be for Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. Yeah. This is how you do it. Everyone, take notes. This is how you make a film with a start. The film starts, it continues, and it ends. Likeable characters, likeable villains, a story you can follow. It's funny, it's well written, has good emotion. The animation is fantastic. I've talked enough about this. Everyone on the internet's talked enough about this. If you have not watched this film, you need to watch it. You need to watch it before the end of this year. It's one of the better films to come out this year. It is the standard, and it is the example. Simply put. Al, next one.
My next film is, of course, Super Mario. Mm-hmm. Really good film. I really enjoyed it, and I've said it many times before on the podcast. My experience was ruined, but nonetheless, it was still a good film. Please go see it if you haven't. Definitely. They did it really well with, usually with video game films, it never goes well, but this, they definitely
Well, like I said on the podcast, one of the main reasons why this film did so well is because it's animated.
No, it's not. No, I'm joking.
It's my live action remake of
No,
Super
it's
Mario
live
Bros. film.
action. What are you talking about?
Oh, don't do that. Like when like the Lion King remake came out, people were like, animation has come a long way, and I was like, that's not animation.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
No, we don't need to talk about that rubbish.
Yeah.
Next one. Let's shift gears totally, and let's go to music. I've got an album, and that is going to be JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown with Scaring the Hose. This is, yes,
Okay.
Yes, it's called that. This is their collaborative album with two of my favorite rappers right now. And this is a very experimental, very loud, and just very in-your-face kind of rap album, because both rappers are very, aggressive in some sense. And I feel like this album just really is just... It kind of just takes you on a ride. There's a nice kind of like old school biblical theme in some of the songs, and I do love even on the title track, Scaring the Hose, it's got probably one of the weirder instrumentals I've heard, where it starts off with like a continuous clap beat, which then progresses into a jazz solo, then into a drum kick snare. With both Danny Brown and JPEG literally saying, stop scaring the hose, And I do love the line where... I think, what does he say? You better not play some whack shit. Give me back the aux cord, that kind of stuff. It very much is in reference to how the rap industry has kind of about and some of the more trappings and unfortunate things. Even Danny Brown saying that a lot of rappers, they don't even rap, they just sell clothes now. Which is stuff that is unfortunately true. And I think, I forget the name of the song, but there's one song in this album, I wish I'd remember its name, which has one of the most insane beats I think I've heard this year. And you also have a song simply titled Kingdom Heart Key.
Okay.
So I wonder what they're sampling on that song. But yeah, no, I'd highly recommend this if you want to hear something that's just kind of experimental, definitely out there, definitely out of your comfort zone if you do listen to rap or music, because I feel like there's something there for everyone in a lot of sense. Al, I believe you have another one?
Yep, so my next one, you pretty much said everything about this film, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
Yep.
I don't need to go into it again, but please go see it. Please go see it.
Do you want to do another one then?
Yeah, and then my next film, which is on the good list, is Knock at the Cabin. So This is the first film I went to go see this year. So pretty much the basic premise of it is, so it's about a family, so it is a gay couple and they've got an adopted daughter. And pretty much they go to a cabin in the woods for a holiday trip, and pretty much so it's sets off with like the daughter, she's in the woods, and then literally Dave Bautista, he comes over and talks to her. So but it does, like, the thing is, the way they set the first scene, it's so uncomfortable and eerie. Even I was just kind of like, oh god. It felt weird, but it was fine. But it was just like he was just talking to her. And pretty much he said, can I see your parents? So it's like, okay, of course you can. And pretty much so pretty much she kind of like, she didn't let the guy come into the house, but he's just pretty much like, she's like telling her parents, oh, like, guys, like, there's a guy trying to come into the house, like, but they're not really paying her any mind. Mm-hmm. So they come into the house and they're basically saying they say to the family, yeah, you need to sit down, basically. One of you are going to have to basically sacrifice yourselves to save the rest of humanity. So it's pretty much they're dealing with that kind of thing. Like, no, I don't want to like sacrifice myself. No, what are you talking about? You're talking rubbish. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the film. But overall, the film was actually a pretty good watch. Definitely, it was an hour and a half, but... Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm sick of like 2 hour 30-minute films that are just boring.
Yeah, no,
Marvel, basically.
Yeah, no, an hour and a half, yeah.
Good. No, in and out,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
I'll talk about my last one, and that is going to be another game, and it's a game that's just come out, and that is going to be I guess to some extent, very controversial because everyone's like, oh, this game is really fun, you should play it, or no, this game's really bad because of what it is. That's going to be for Crash Team Rumble. It's just come out. I've probably put in a good couple hours. My verdict on the game? It's extremely fun, but flawed. I'm having a lot of fun with this game. It is basically Power Stone made today.
Ooh, okay.
And I was really happy with that. It's a good game. I think right now the flaws Some of the characters need tweaking. Some of them need to be debuffed and powered, because you have, as of right now, 3 main classes. You have scorers, which basically go and gather Wumpa fruit, bring it back to the goalpost. You have blockers, who essentially are stronger, tankier enemies, characters. They attack, they literally block you from doing such, blocking their goal, your goal. And then you have boosters, which essentially allow you to rapidly do things faster. So you can collect relics and you can put the relics into a power. It allows you to fill the meter faster in terms of things. Boosters themselves are very underpowered, because there's almost no difference between them and scorers. Like, there's barely anything. You might, like, if you don't like the 2 boosters, which is Neo Cortex and Coco, you might as well just not play as them. Barely anyone plays as those characters. And characters, the blockers, are just a little bit too overpowered. Embryo is way too strong. I was playing as him last night, and I was destroying everyone. It's that bad. Because he can go into his monster form like within like 3 seconds of recharge. That's too much. Like, you can almost always be the monster if you're good enough. Same with Entropy. The moment anyone is playing as Entropy and Entropy decides, nah, I'm gonna stand on your goal, you might as well put the controller down. You are not killing Entropy. Simply put, no one can kill him right now. They need to fucking patch him, because it is becoming a real problem. Like, once Entropy is on field, you might as well just start collecting relics and just like try to just beat people, because he's decided his team wins at that point. He needs to be nerfed big time. The content is very slow. It's very grindy, unfortunately. Granted, They want you to buy these things and buy the battle pass. And the season 1 is going to last until, I believe, September 12th, which is a really long time for a whole season of content. And especially with so few characters, because I believe there's only, 8 characters at launch right now, which is still very low. Granted, they're adding 2 more at some point. They haven't said when, being Ripperoo and Engine, which I'm surprised Engine wasn't there in the beginning. Like, you're gonna put Entropy over Engine. Like, what are you doing? Not good in my opinion. But I would highly recommend it. It's not super expensive. If it looks like a game that you think you're gonna have fun with it, buy it. If not, leave it alone. If you're someone who rage quits very easily, don't play it, because you'll get annoyed, because I'll be on there and I'll be messing you up. But but yeah, no. Al, did you have another one, or
just one more.
Last one.
So the last one is so we're going on to the more negative side. So it's the bad film.
All right.
Yeah, so I was very hyped for this film last year in the end of year podcast. Unfortunately, it was very disappointed. It's Cocaine Bear. Very disappointed. In a nutshell, basically, it's a frenzied bear that kills people and occasionally does dumb shit. Basically, that's the film.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Video of the episode then?
Yeah.
Right, so in terms of it being Pride Month and obviously LGBTQ plus themes and all that kind of stuff, I have a pretty fun and slightly longer video of the episode, and that is going to be The Bizarre World of Pointless Gender Products by Kurtis Connor, who is a YouTuber and stand-up comedian. He's a fantastic content creator, and this is a 20-minute long video where he essentially looks at reviews, makes fun of a lot of these products where it's like, oh, the pink is for girls and the manly man version and that kind of stuff. And he kind of makes light of these things. And I find it really funny as well to kind of add on to kind of some of the things he says and some of the things that other people have said. A lot of these companies and creators don't seem to realize that, there are men who wear women's perfume and women's deodorant, and there are women who wear clothes that were made for men. So there's no point really just trying to make, the pink one for the girls. There's no point doing that anymore. It's so stupid. It's so outdated, especially in this day and age when so many people don't even essentially assign themselves or want to be regarded as man or woman. So it's like, you're just going to keep offending people to some extent. And even if you are, male, female, whatever, yeah, it's a bit, I think it's kind of nasty to kind of segregate things and be like, no, you buy the pink one, pink one for girls. No, you can't have that one, man. You need to buy the man one. Stupid. Anything you'd like to add to this podcast before we wrap it up, Al?
Nah.
Okay. I want to thank you for being on this all over the place, very packed-filled episode.
No problem.
Hopefully we'll see you soon in the future for the next one, whenever that will be. But yeah, I guess there isn't anything else to say other than I should really thank you guys for listening to this episode as well. I do appreciate it, everyone who's made it this far, and obviously subscribing to the channel always helps. It's always nice to see the audience grow and to kind of have more of a discussion kind of get started, hopefully someday. That'd be nice. But yeah, I guess I will now end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon.
I'm the Indigenous Owl.
And we will see you on the next podcast.